In the endless expanse of a frozen world, where the wind howled like a grieving spirit and the ice stretched beyond the horizon, a young woman named Kaelith knelt beside a dying fire, her trembling hands clutching a spear carved from the bones of a beast long vanished. Her breath fogged in the frigid air, her eyes scanning the darkness for the predators that stalked her people, but her heart ached for something far greater than survival, a love that burned brighter than the fading embers at her feet, a love that could defy the merciless grip of the ice land. 10,000 years ago, in a time when humanity clung to existence by the thinnest thread, Kaelith's story was not just one of endurance but of a desperate fight to protect a bond that the frozen world seemed determined to shatter. Her world was a crucible of ice and shadow, where every heartbeat was a rebellion against death, and every choice carried the weight of 1,000 lives. This is the tale of how one woman, against the cruelties of an ancient, unforgiving land, fought not only to survive but to prove that love could endure even the coldest of nights. If you believe in the power of kindness, second chances, and the strength of the human spirit, please hit that like button, drop a comment, share this story with someone who needs it, and subscribe to Gentle Hearts, our channel dedicated to stories that remind us what it means to be human. Your support keeps these tales alive, and we'd love to hear what moves you in Kaelith's journey. The Ice Land was a realm of eternal winter, a place where the sun was a fleeting guest, its weak rays barely piercing the thick, gray clouds that smothered the sky. The ground was a mosaic of ice and stone, cracked and jagged, where no plant dared to grow, and the only sounds were the crunch of frost beneath boots and the distant roars of beasts that hunted in the dark. Kaelith's tribe, the people of the Ember, numbered barely 50 souls, a fragile band of survivors who roamed the tundra in search of food and shelter. They were bound by blood and necessity, their lives tethered to the few fires they could keep alive in caves and hollows. Kaelith, at 19 winters, was among the youngest, her frame lean but strong, her dark hair matted with dirt and braided with sinew to keep it from her face. Her eyes, a striking amber that seemed to glow against the pallor of her skin, held a fire that her people both revered and feared, a fire that spoke of hope, defiance, and a heart too stubborn to yield. Kaelith's greatest challenge was not the cold, though it gnawed at her bones and turned her fingers numb. Nor was it the hunger that clawed at her belly, a constant companion in a land where game was scarce and every hunt a gamble with death. Her true battle was for Tharren, the man who had become her reason to endure. Tharren was a hunter, broad-shouldered and quiet, with hands calloused from wielding a spear and a smile that could warm even the iciest night. He was her opposite in many ways, where Kaelith was fire, quick to anger and quicker to dream, Tharren was stone, steady and unyielding. Their love had grown in stolen moments, shared glances by the fire, fingers brushing as they passed tools, whispered promises when the tribe slept. But the Ice Land did not care for love. The tribe's elder, Grave, a weathered man whose scars told stories of battles with beasts and blizzards, had declared their bond a danger. Love weakens the hunter, he had said, his voice like gravel. It clouds the mind, softens the hand. We cannot afford softness. Grave's word was law, and he had forbidden Kaelith and Tharren from being together, threatening to cast them out if they defied him. To be cast out was to die, alone, frozen, and forgotten in the endless white. Kaelith's heart rebelled against Grave's decree, but the weight of survival pressed heavily on her shoulders. The tribe was her family, her only shield against the Ice Land's cruelty. To lose them would be to lose everything, yet to lose Tharren would be to lose herself. Each night, as she lay on a bed of furs in the cave's dim glow, she wrestled with her choices. She could obey Grave, bury her love, and live as a shadow of herself, or she could fight for Tharren and risk everything. The decision gnawed at her, as relentless as the wind that battered the cave's entrance. But the Ice Land had a way of forcing choices, and it came in the form of a storm that changed everything. The storm descended without warning, a howling beast of snow and ice that swallowed the world in white. The tribe had been tracking a herd of tuskers, massive, shaggy creatures with curved fangs and thick hides that could feed the people of the Ember for weeks. The hunt was desperate, their food stores were nearly gone, and the children's cries of hunger echoed in the cave. Kaelith and Tharren were among the hunters, their spears ready, their bodies wrapped in furs that did little to shield them from the cold. The storm hit as they stalked the herd, blinding them, scattering the tuskers, and separating the hunters in a chaos of wind and snow. Kaelith found herself alone, her shouts lost in the gale, her vision reduced to a swirl of white. Panic clawed at her chest, but she forced it down, gripping her spear and stumbling forward, searching for any sign of her people. Hours passed, or perhaps days, time blurred in the storm's grip. Her body grew heavy, her limbs sluggish, and the cold seeped into her bones, whispering for her to lie down, to rest, to surrender. It was Tharren who found her, his silhouette emerging from the blizzard like a dream. His face was half frozen, his lips cracked and bleeding, but his eyes burned with determination. He pulled her to her feet, wrapping his own furs around her, his warmth a fleeting anchor against the cold. Together, they stumbled through the storm, clinging to each other, their breaths mingling in the icy air. They found a shallow cave, little more than a crevice in a cliff face, and huddled there, their bodies pressed close for warmth. In that moment, with death so near, Kaelith felt the truth of her love for Tharren like a fire in her chest. It was not weakness, as Grave had claimed, but strength, a reason to keep fighting, to keep breathing. Tharren's hand found hers, his fingers rough but gentle, and he whispered words that she could barely hear over the storm. "I will not lose you." Those words became her lifeline, pulling her back from the edge of despair. When the storm finally broke, the world was transformed. The tundra was a sea of fresh snow, the tracks of the tuskers erased, the landscape alien and unforgiving. Kaelith and Tharren emerged from the cave, weak but alive, only to find that the tribe was gone. The storm had scattered them, and the cave where they had sheltered was empty, the fire cold. Kaelith's heart sank as she realized the truth. They were alone, cut off from their people, with no food, no shelter, and no way to know if the tribe had survived. The ice land had stripped them bare, leaving only their love and their will to survive. Tharren's face was grim, but he took her hand, his grip steady. "We find them," he said simply. "Or we make our own way." Kaelith nodded, her fear tempered by the fire in her chest. They would fight, not just for survival, but for each other. Their journey was a descent into hardship. The ice land was merciless, its beauty a cruel deception. Glaciers gleamed like polished bone under the weak sun, but their surfaces were treacherous, hiding crevasses that could swallow a person whole. The wind carried the howls of frost wolves, lean and ravenous, their eyes glowing in the twilight. Kaelith and Tharren moved as one, their steps careful, their senses sharp. They scavenged what they could, scraps of frozen moss, the occasional small creature caught in a trap made from sinew and bone. Hunger became their constant companion, a dull ache that grew sharper with each passing day. Yet it was the loneliness that cut deepest. Without the tribe, without the warmth of shared fires and shared stories, the world felt vast and empty. Kaelith clung to Tharren's presence, his quiet strength a reminder that they were not entirely alone. Days turned to weeks, and the ice land tested them in ways they could not have imagined. A frost wolf attacked one night, its jaws snapping inches from Kaelith's throat before Tharren drove his spear into its side. The fight left them bloodied and exhausted, but they salvaged the wolf's pelt, a small victory against the cold. Another time, Kaelith fell through a thin sheet of ice into a freezing stream, her body seizing as the water stole her breath. Tharren pulled her out, rubbing her limbs until feeling returned, his face etched with fear he would not voice. Through it all, their love grew fiercer, a flame that refused to die. They spoke of a future, an impossible dream of a place where the ice gave way to green, where they could build a life free from Grave's laws and the ice land's cruelty. It was a fantasy, but it kept them moving, kept them alive. Change came slowly, like the first crack of ice in a thaw. They found signs of the tribe, a broken spear, a scrap of fur, a faint trail in the snow. Hope flickered, fragile but real. Kaelith and Tharren followed the signs, their bodies weaker but their spirits unbroken. The trail led them to a valley, sheltered by cliffs that blocked the worst of the wind. There, in a cave lit by a faint glow, they found the remnants of the people of the Ember. The tribe was battered, their numbers reduced, their faces gaunt with hunger. Grave was among them, his eyes hollow but still sharp. He looked at Kaelith and Tharren, their hands clasped, their furs shared, and saw what he had tried to forbid. For a moment, Kaelith braced for his anger, for the exile that would doom them. But Grave's face softened, and he said nothing, only nodded. The tribe's survival was too fragile for old laws to hold. In that moment, Kaelith understood. The ice land had not broken them, but it had changed them. Love, she realized, was not a weakness but a force that could bind a people together, stronger than any storm. Kaelith and Tharren rejoined the tribe, their bond no longer hidden but a quiet defiance that others began to accept. The people of the Ember moved on, their fires burning a little brighter, their steps a little surer. Kaelith's heart swelled with a new kind of hope, not just for her and Tharren, but for a future where love could be a strength, not a burden. The ice land remained cruel, its challenges endless, but Kaelith knew they would face it together. Her story was not one of triumph over the ice, but of a love that endured it, a flame that burned even in the darkest, coldest nights. If Kaelith and Tharren's story touched your heart, if their fight for love and survival moved you to tears or inspired you to hold your loved ones a little closer, please hit that like button, share this video, and leave a comment below telling us what this story meant to you. Subscribe to Gentle Hearts for more stories that remind us of the beauty and strength in the human spirit. Your engagement means the world to us, and we can't wait to share more tales that stir the soul. Before we end, we'd love to hear from you. What part of Kaelith's journey resonated with you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and let's keep this story alive together.